Hi there, my name is Ron Rogers, and this presentation is titled Flying with Difficult Captains, Captain Cutt. Now, that's not his real name, that's not a real picture, but if you've flown with this guy, you know who he is. Now, at the time this was going on, I was on the 27, he was too, and there was a fuel monitoring program. And the company kept track of captains who did really well on the fuel burn. They must be really efficient, good captains. They were a model for everybody else. And Captain Cutt was number 4 on the list, and he wanted to move up. Now, in the center of the panel is one of the older, which is what we had at the time, ACAR system. This reported information to the company. And so we'd get a fuel load, and we'd start out the trip, and we'd have like 20,000 pounds of fuel on board. And Captain Cutt would tell the second officer, he says, well, okay, put in that we got 19.5. And then when we landed, say we landed with, 12, something like that, he'd say, okay, put in 12.5. So he would short the departure fuel and increase the arrival fuel by about 1,000 pounds. And I finally said to him, well, no wonder you're high on the list. I guess, where would you really be if you didn't cheat? Well, that didn't go over well. And see, what Captain Cutt liked to do is he liked to ride crew members. And he would start out with the co-pilot, and he would work hard to ride the co-pilot. And if he couldn't do that, he would move on down the line, and in this case, to the second officer. So, we got this trip. We're flying multiple legs, and we're kind of watching the fuel. And, of course, there was, on the flight plan, there was the expected burn. And it was kind of funny because whenever he flew a leg, something went wrong. And his fuel burn, even cheating, was over the programmed fuel burn. So he wasn't doing so good. And I was actually underburning, which is kind of interesting. And I kind of pointed this out to him and had a little chuckle with it. One time it got so bad, we're going into San Francisco, and we got behind a Nordo other airline aircraft. Nordo is no radio. So we're getting vectored all over the place. And I'm sitting over there kind of chuckling because his fuel burn is just going way up and way up. And he was very displeased. So at the end of about 6 legs, I'm keeping track of it, and I'm going, okay, I underburned, and you were over. Well, he didn't like this at all. So he's, and you take a risk with a captain like this, but I was dishing it back to him. So we were going okay. And I think he got to the point where he figured he wasn't going to get anywhere with me. Well, an interesting aspect to this story was I sit down at flight operations table, and a crew member sitting there, and he looks at me and says, we laid over at Santa Barbara last time we were together. And I looked at him and I said, Santa Barbara? I haven't laid over Santa Barbara in about 4 years. And you remember that we laid over together? And he looked at me and says, we flew with Captain Cutt. And I go, oh, no wonder you remember. Well, we're sitting there on the ground at Santa Barbara, and, the most fuel-efficient takeoff was flaps 5. So he tells the second officer, he says, I want a flaps 5 card. And this is when we had the little grease pencil. They were actually stop sign kind of shaped, and they went in on the radar display there, the little round black and white radar set we had at the time. And the second officer would get in his books, and he'd fill this out, and he says, give me a flaps 5 takeoff. And he throws the card back. He doesn't even hand it. He throws it back to him. And fortunately, the second officer caught it the first time. And he puts it forward, and he says, I don't like that. Give me a flaps 15 card. And he throws it back again. This time, it glances off the second officer's panel, actually goes out the door into the cabin area. The second officer has to unstrap, get up, go out there and get it. He goes, come on, hurry up. We need to get going here. So he goes and gives him the flaps 15 speeds. Hands the card back up. He looks at it and goes, I don't like those. Give me flaps 5. And he throws the card back again. Second officer has to scramble to get it. And he says, come on, hurry up here. And he's sitting there, he's writing it down. And what the poor second officer had not done was record the flaps 5 that he originally put there. And Captain Vandercut is going, come on, hurry up here. So he hands the card forward. And one of the things that you did as a co-pilot on the 27 is you did a little mental calculation of what the speed should be. And I looked at that card, and he had not changed it from the flaps 15 speed back to the flaps 5 speed. And I said, I think those are still the flaps 15 speeds. And Captain Vandercut looked at that. You could see the veins coming out in his neck. His face was turning red. He says, what are you trying to do? Kill us? And he throws the card back. And I said, wait just and I used a not a very good term, minute, swear word. I said, wait just a swear word minute. I said, you have been writing him. I said, it's lucky that's the only thing he got wrong. I said, why don't you give the poor guy a break? And, well, that was kind of interesting. Because you never know how a captain's going to react when you kind of come back in his face. And this guy just crumbled. And it just shocked the heck out of me because I thought I was going to get an absolute tongue lashing and thrown off the trip. He comes back and he says, well, he should have gotten it right. We can't have these speeds wrong. He should have gotten it right. And I said, well, just calm down and give him some time. And after that, things went fairly smoothly. He couldn't ride me, and he couldn't ride the second officer. And yeah, he was a pleasure to fly with. Thanks for listening.